For this afternoon, we're going to have a discussion on a certain topic that is very important as you prepare for your argumentative writing. Right. So our topic has something to do with claims of fact, value, and policy. So our objectives for the afternoon is first identify the difference among claims of fact, policy, and value. Then understand what a claim is and how claims are basically classified. And you also have to formulate claims of fact, policy, and value. Then you have participate in the activities by performing the tasks diligently. So as we move on, I'd like you to share some ideas or opinions that you can generate from this editorial cartoon. I'd like to take a look at it first. Then let me know what you can observe from the cartoon. And then let me know if you have something to share. Anyone? Yes, James, you're raising your hand.
In my opinion po, ma'am, ano po yung internet, ma'am, yung sobrang bagal po ng
Alright,
internet connection.
yeah, that could be one. James, thank you. It may be something about the slow internet connection that we are experiencing here in our country. What else? It can also have other ideas, ha? Okay, what else do you have in mind about the editorial cartoon? How about April? Do you have something to share about it?
Yung parang pag ano po, hindi po kasi magets yung lesson kaya po parang medyo pag ano po, parang lutang kasi hindi po medyo clear yung lesson sa kanila lalo na po kung ano, kung ganun po yung ano, yung sistema.
Okay, I think what you're trying to say is that there are instances where learners could not finish the assigned tasks because of some instructions that are not clear in the module or in the worksheets provided. Am I correct? Yes, no. So what else? What other ideas can you generate from the cartoon? Yes, John Kenneth.
I think it's all about the problem of students in online distance learning po. And it shows slow progress in doing tasks o yung mga pinapagawa po ng mga teachers.
Okay, so it has something to do with learners' productivity in the online distance learning class. Okay, and take note, in relation to that, teachers too are having a hard time to check all the papers of the students, especially if you are handling both the MDL and the ODL classes. No, because you have to check papers for the MDL and then also in the online. You know, in online, let me share. No, it's really very hard to check the output because files are uploaded in the Google Classroom and downloading them and checking them, assessing them one by one is really hard, especially if you really have a slow internet connection. Okay, so of course the limitation of the applications to use on how to check. Not all teachers have the access to certain applications that will allow them to check the papers in a soft copy form, diba? It's really hard to check pictures of output. Unlike if it is submitted through a paper, like the MDL classes, it's easier to mark using a ball pen. Okay? So thank you for your sharing. So as individuals, we are often compelled to respond to different kinds of issues around us. And when we respond or express our opinion towards an issue, it is important to be able to identify the writer's or the speaker's claim. Okay? I'm sure you have encountered the term claim. And a clear understanding of someone's belief of or ideas about something enables others to give appropriate feedback or reactions. At this point, let us discuss what is a claim. I already mentioned this term earlier, but I'm sure there are questions in your mind what this word means. So take note that a claim is an arguable statement that defines your goal of the essay. What is your stand about a certain issue? And it is the central statement of a text where the writer tries to prove his points by providing details, explanations, and other types of evidence. Okay? If you remember, when we check papers, I would normally put a pi symbol. Diba? In math, there is a pi symbol. And I would place that at the beginning of your sentence. It means that that particular set of sentences should be written in a separate paragraph because there is already a separate claim or there is already a separate statement that is different from the previous. Take note, we should observe one paragraph, one idea, so that you don't bombard a certain paragraph with a lot of ideas, especially if it's different from one another. Okay? You don't also make your paragraphs really very long. The shorter, the better, but it has to be on point. It can persuade, argue, and convince someone and prove something. Okay? How do you prove? We will clarify that later on. It provocatively suggests something to a reader who may or may not initially agree with you. Okay? In other words, at the beginning, your reader might not agree with your idea, but the target is perhaps after reading, that reader who doesn't agree with you at the beginning should agree with you at the end. Okay? Because you are to convince the reader that your points are believable. Now, there are three types of claim. The first one is claim of fact. Then we have claim of value and claim of policy. We're going to discuss this one by one as we move along. Okay, let's begin with the first one, claims of fact. Claims of fact argues whether something is true or a condition has existed, exists, or will exist. True or not true, but there must always be potential for controversy, conflict, or change. Take a look at these examples. First, the existence of health protocols has reduced the rate of infection. So if you are the one reading, this statement may be true or not true. Okay? Take note, would you agree that these health protocols has reduced, meaning to say it has lessened the rate of infection of the COVID-19 or coronavirus to the people? So see, here, this is particular statement is a claim of fact because it can be questionable as to whether true or not true, or whether it exists or not exists, or it may happen. Okay? This one. Capital punishment reduces crime rates. So if you are reading this, you are going to question if really capital punishment really reduces crime rates. No. And then the earth revolves around the sun. How would you know whether it is true or not, or whether it exists or not exist? Okay? Or it doesn't exist at all. Now, there are ways to support that. Okay? Take note that claims of fact can prove or disprove something. It can be proven true or untrue. Or take note that a condition has existed, exists, or will exist. So these are some keywords that you have to remember to know that a certain statement is a claim of fact. Okay? So how will we support? You will use factual evidence that is sufficient, reliable, and appropriate, such as research and interviews. Okay? Sometimes we use figures or statistics. Sometimes we use attribution. When we say attribution, these are statements from authorities. Okay? Example, if we go back to the previous sentence, this one, the existence of health protocols has reduced the rate of infection. To prove that this statement is true or not true, we're going to interview someone who is credible to give justification about this statement. It can be the secretary of the department, the secretary of health, the DOH, the Department of Health. It can be somebody from the barangay who's working in the health department. Okay, so you're not going to ask someone who is not credible to give you appropriate response to this statement. Okay, so because we wanted to prove that a certain claim is true or not true, or we wanted to prove that or disprove that something is correct or not correct, then we have to look for someone who can give us a guarantee that our statement is correct or not correct. Okay, their response will help us to really clarify the claim or the issue. Okay? So take note that claims of fact can be supported and can be proven sufficient if we do research and interviews. Do you have any clarifications about claims of fact? Is it clear about claims of fact? Okay, so let's proceed with the next one. Claims of value. Claims of value argues that something is good or bad, or that one thing is better than another thing. It also makes a judgment that is subjective. In other words, it's personal and expresses approval or disapproval about something. Attempts to show that something is wrong or right, moral or immoral, beautiful or ugly. Example, although immunotherapy has produced some good results in fighting cancer, overall, it is less effective than chemotherapy. Take note that there are two things being compared here. We have immunotherapy and chemotherapy. I think claims of value can be easier to remember because ideally you do comparison. You normally see some superlatives in the statement. In other words, there is always a comparison. Something is better than the other, worse than the other, good or bad than the other. Example, social harmony is better than freedom. So there are also comparison between social harmony and then freedom. How about this? Abortion is immoral. It talks about something that is moral or immoral. So it's easier to remember claims of value because it talks about the worth of something over the other. So to remember, take note that claims of value can give you a guide whether something is good or better or best, ugly or beautiful, bad, worse or worst, right or wrong, which is different from true or untrue with the claims of fact. Then moral or immoral. It also compares ideas against one another. But how do you support? You must establish standards that you are using to measure the beauty or probability of your topic. Okay? Take note ha, you're going to establish standards. Example, if you're going to measure the beauty of something, what will be your standard? Is it tall? Is it short? Is it white complexion, fair complexion, so on and so forth? Okay, the color of something, if it is an object. Okay, the fashion, if it is a person, fashion, the way the person dresses, etc. Claims of value, on the other hand, claims of policy rather, argues that certain conditions exist or that something should or should not be done in order to solve a problem. This is also called a problem solution technique. Okay, take note of this statement. This is also called a problem solution technique. And ideally, it uses the models should not, ought to, and ought not to. So those are your keywords. Examples. There are 3 basic rules that people should follow to avoid COVID-19 infection. Wear a mask, wash hands properly, and practice social distancing. Mandatory jail should be imposed for drunk driving violations to lessen the cases of road accidents. So let's check if it really follows the conditions stated by the claims of policy. First, it argued that a certain condition exists or should or should not be done. Take note. Should follow. You can already see here a certain modal. Okay? And doing this, what would happen? We wanted to avoid COVID-19 infection. That's our solution. I mean problem. No, there is a COVID-19 infection. It's a problem. And therefore, to solve that, we have to wear masks, wash hands properly, and practice social distancing. And then on the second sentence, mandatory jail should be imposed. That's our solution. Why? Because we wanted to lessen the cases of road accidents. That's the problem. Okay? The problem is road accidents. Okay? And our solution, we have to impose mandatory jail for drunk driving violations. Okay? So within the statement, you can see the problem and the solution. And ideally, you will use the modals should not, ought to, and ought not to, which I have already emphasized also. So these are some key points if you want to remember claims of policy. Use of these models, and there must be a statement of the problem within the statement or the sentence, and of course the solution within the statement. So to support that, you must first convince the audience that a problem exists and prove that your policy will fix it. Ideally, claims of policy are done by legislators, no, the ones who are making our ordinances in the barangay. If it's the smallest unit, if we're talking about the smallest unit, then we go higher uh, with our city, no, our city councilors and the mayor, and then the vice mayor, and then as we proceed with the executive, with the higher part, we have our senators, no, doing this policy. They are policy makers. They are our lawmakers. I think in your Araling Panlipunan, it's being discussed, no, even in the previous years, that before a certain law becomes a law, it has a process to undergo. No, at first it becomes a paper, and then it becomes a bill, etc., etc. No, may mga prosesong pinagdadaanan yan. I think it's also good that you try to research sometime how a law becomes a law. Okay? Research on that. How does a law become a law? Ano nga ba nagiging batas ang isang batas? Okay? And you will find there a lot of statements of claims of policies that will help you understand. Okay? That's actually an interesting topic, but because it's not our coverage anyway, we're just sharing it because it really helps. No, later on, you will understand why lawmakers make laws. At this point, what do you think is the importance of identifying the speaker's claim or the writer's claim, if it is a written paper or a printed document, or if it's on TV, let's say we're watching a certain program. What do you think is the importance of identifying the speaker or the writer's claim before we express our opinions or opinions? Anyone would like to share?
Christian po, ma'am.
Yes, Christian, go ahead.
Ma'am, try lang po. Ma'am, for me, ma'am, too easy to understand by the readers po.
Okay, that's the one. You wanted our readers to be understood. Okay, what else? Take note of the key point, ha? Why do we need to know the speaker's claim before we express our opinion? Let's say you have read something or you have heard something. Okay? Why do we need to know the claim before we express our opinion? Yes, John Kenneth?
Ma'am, because it can be a form of standard or parang criteria para po sa po natin, sa pag-evaluate po natin ng ibang tao po.
Okay, so it's important that we know what is really the point of the speaker or the writer, because our reactions will be based from there, will be based on the statement. No, we can give justifiable feedback or reaction if we know the claim correctly. Okay? What else can you add? Is there anything else that you would like to add? Okay, if none, let's proceed with the next question. How can these different types of claims contribute to the effective expression of opinions or assertions about a specific issue? Now that you have learned the different types of claims, how will they make them help you make your statements or assertions about a certain issue? Now that you have learned the different types of claims, how do you think these claims will help you in expressing your opinion?
Having those claims po, ma'am, yung mga niyo po, yung claim niyo po, masasuportahan niyo po siya agad ng mga factual statements, mga ganun po agad. Kung meron po, kung alam niyo po yung types ng ng claims niyo.
Yes, thank you, April. Once you know the type of claim that you are making or writing, it's easier to support your ideas. Okay, let's say you are giving a statement of fact. Therefore, you have to make sure that you have your statistics, your figures, uh, attributions, meaning to say you are going to get research or you're going to get statements of authorities about the issue. Okay, if it's a claim of fact. Okay, because you wanted to prove that something is true or not true. Whereas if it is a statement of value, okay, you're going to check whether something is moral, immoral, beautiful or ugly, no, right or wrong, and you will also compare. While in policy, on the other hand, it is about something that you'd like to provide solution to a certain problem. Okay? So you see, the moment you know these claims, you are able to support your statements properly. It's not just about throwing your opinion without support. Okay? For you to convince others, you have to provide uh, statements that will really convince the person to agree with you. Okay? Otherwise, you will end up having arguments with someone. Okay? Because eventually, at the end of the day, they will not agree with what you are trying to claim. No. Let's say Jessa said that this subject is the easiest. Okay, whatever that subject is. So for Jessa to convince Esa about that statement, you really have to provide uh, support for your claim. Okay, what makes that subject really the best for you? Okay, so that Esa would be convinced. Okay? Or let's say this particular writing technique helps me a lot. How would John Kenneth convince Novi that it's really effective if it's not effective for him? Okay? So there can be a lot of ways to support your claim. Okay po?